Good morning, everyone. Wow, it's amazing to see joy, love, and caring being expressed. We would like to welcome you to the celebration, the remembering, the legacy, and the manifested love that was Wanda Carol Schermerhorn-Rhoades. Man, my heart was beeping right there. Like, don't mess up the name. Okay. I'd like to invite everybody to join me in prayer in your own special way, as I pray in my own special way. We gathered today to remember, celebrate, reflect on the love, the life, and legacy, and the inspiration of Wanda. Wanda is the manifestation of unconditional love, the love of a mother that extends beyond existence. It begins before birth and continues beyond afterlife. It reminds us of the most important lesson of unconditional love, and that is, it has no conditions. You don't have to earn it, and you won't ever lose it. May the love of Wanda that manifested in this world continue to be a guiding light. May it be an example of how God loves us. The greater love of God has for all of us, and may it be a blessing to us. Amen. Now we'll have a musical celebration by the words of Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Miss Decky Thornton on the violin and Miss Wendy Reynolds on the cello. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Miss Wanda Schermerhorn-Rhoades' brother, David Schermerhorn, to bless us with a few words.
Hi. On behalf of my sister, Patricia Schermerhorn, myself, and my nieces, Corina Wise and Shireen Amador, they're responsible for putting this event on, and we thank them from the bottom of our heart. And as you can see, they worked very diligently for the last 3 weeks on this event, and we salute you. To honor my sister today, I would like to share with you some of my memories of her, some of my thoughts, and some of my feelings. My earliest memory of my sister Wanda took place when I was about 3 or 4 years old. We were living in Daly City, and it was just me, my father, Wanda, and Patty. But we had watchful eyes over us when my dad went to work. We had our Auntie Pauline and my Uncle Bell, and Millie, and Henny, and Teddy Boy, and Eddie looking after us. They said we ran the streets of Daly City wild, and we did, but we came home at midnight. If I found a genie that gave me one wish, that wish would be for my sister not having to grow up so fast. When we left Daly City, we moved to Pacifica, and she continued to take care of me, but there we were raised by my grandmother, Esperanza Schermerhorn, the most beautiful grandmother one could have. My Auntie Grace, my Auntie Jessie, they watched over us. With my sister, we grew up, and like I said, if I had found a genie that gave me one wish, it would be that she didn't have to grow up so fast. My dad depended on her so much. At the age of 15, she took control of all his finances and paid his bills each and every month. That was at 15 years old. At 18, she got married and gave birth to her first child, Shireen Amador. I lived with her in Fairmont, I lived with her in San Bruno, and I lived with her in Fremont. I have spent the last 40 years living with my sister, and that's not bad because my dad lived with her sister and her other sister all his life. Like I said, she gave birth to Shireen. I went into the service, and I haven't seen her for the next 4 years. When I got out of the service, I lived with them in San Bruno. I want to share with you some of the memories I have from our high school days, because when I went into high school as a freshman, she was a senior, and she was very athletic. She was one of 6 cheerleaders, and I got to say, these 6 cheerleaders were the most prettiest girls in our school, and I was so proud of my sister because she was one of them. My friends would say, "That's your sister?" Yeah, that was my sister. I'd have to admit that Wanda was probably the smartest of the 3 of us and the most mentally tough. She was defiant, she was strong, and I think she passed that on to both Patty and I. Her defiance, I remember her, my aunts never laid a finger on us throughout all our youth, but my sister Wanda, being as defiant as she was spanked a couple of times by Auntie Jessie, and I can remember her saying, "Go ahead, hit me again." That's how defiant she was. My wife Georgina and I had our first child, Matthew, and we bought a house in San Bruno where she gave birth to our second child, Adam. And we were going out of our house. It was only a 900 square foot home. So I had saved about $25,000, and we were going to add on to it. And when my sister Wanda found that out, she called me. She said, "David, don't remodel. Sell your home and come to Fremont." And Georgina and I just loved San Bruno. We loved that side of the bay because Fremont didn't have much then. They have grown so thus far, though. She closed that deal with me by saying, "Come to Fremont and I'll take care of your kids. And we know how much childcare is today. Don't we, Mr. Wiseman? Excuse me. So we moved to Fremont. I bought a home about 1.5 miles from her. I drove my children to school. She picked them up. And by the time we picked them up from school, we went back to the house, and dinner was ready for us. So I got free babysitting, free meals from my sister Wanda. She always took care of us. And I owe her a lot. Unfortunately, my wife and I divorced, and I moved in with Dan, where I spent the next 25 years until the day she passed. She came into this world on May 30th, 1948, and we celebrated her 75th birthday 5 days ago. I understand that death is part of life, but in this teaching that I follow, we have learned that it's not the end of life. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and because of that, we are eternal as God is eternal. I will always remember my sister. She meant so much to me. She was more than just my sister. I want to thank you for being here today. Let's celebrate my sister, Wanda Carol Schermerhorn-Rhoades. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, David. Now we have the words of Ms. Patricia Schermerhorn, read by Matthew Schermerhorn.
No, it's the other way around.
Oh.
Oh, is that right? Is that right? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
I did. I kind of wrote this. No, I did not. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all here today. As mentioned, I'm Matt Schermerhorn, Auntie Wanda, second nephew. I have the privilege to read my Aunt Patricia's words today, her eulogy that she wrote for her lovely sister. My dad left a tough act to follow, so please don't expect the same level of articulation there. But this is for Auntie Wanda. So, my sister, Wanda, know thyself. Like most mortals, we rarely seize the opportunity or have the inclination to see who we truly are, to see our true nature, our essence. Wanda was no exception. I don't believe Wanda was able to recognize the beautiful truth of who she was on earth. Self-love was not in or recognized as important as it is today, so I would like to illuminate what I easily saw in my sister Wanda. Wanda, David, and I, as many of you know, had a rough start. Our mother departed in the middle of the night, and we never saw her again until we were in our 50s. Consequently, we didn't have a mother growing up, but we were blessed with an exceptional father, loving aunts, especially Auntie Grace and Auntie Jessie, and amazing grandmother Lala. Wanda took to the mantle of a guardian at an early age. She had to grow up way before her time to care for David and me. Only a bright star or an old soul could do something like that. Wanda was happily married to Dan Rhoades, the love of her life, for over 40 years. They traveled the world together and had many cool adventures. Wanda especially loved Africa. Wanda had an enormous love for babies, so if there was ever a babysitting gig needed, she was the first to volunteer. She was such a natural nurturer, a giver of such good love. Wanda raised 7 girls and 1 boy. My son Morgan called her mama too. I didn't mind because she deserved it. Wanda was small in stature, but her arms and legs were long for her size. Her hands revealed both skill and grace. Dancing came easily to her. Her body and natural rhythm were beautifully aligned. She was limber, strong, and balanced most of her life. She carried the soul of an artist as she knew we are here to create. Wanda was pretty and beautiful at the same time. As youngsters, Gilda, Terry, Tina, Wanda, and I took ballet classes together. It was apparent that Wanda had the most talent, so she was immediately given the solo role for our much-anticipated recital. The evening of our performance, we discovered our costumes were a different color from the other dancers. As a solution, they put us behind these huge plants on stage so the audience couldn't see us, but we still managed to dance our hearts out, while Wanda took center stage and danced like a gazelle. When growing up, Wanda and I spent most Saturdays in our imaginations dancing and playing various characters in a game we created called Alley. We were also hams, so we danced and sang at our family gatherings and at various schools. We played well together and never bored of each other. In high school, Wanda was the most admired cheerleader. She had many friends who took a liking to me because I was Wanda's sister. I can't tell you how many times I was told by a teacher, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I wondered that myself. Regardless of Wanda eating like a bird, it didn't stop her from being a great cook. She cooked with the same ease and grace for 6 or 50 people. Her Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners gave the barefoot Contessa a run for her bolognese, and her Christmas tree decorations made Neiman Marcus's tree look amateurish. It was just one of her many talents and specialties. She also gave great parties, as many of you will attest to. Wanda, being a true Gemini, had the kind of intelligence that often surprised you. She even did her crossword puzzles in pen. I recall one morning in the early 1980s, Wanda was having a technician install Dolby surround sound in her happy room, as we often called the family room. After watching the technician fumble through numerous wires for over an hour, Wanda finally stepped in and said to the young man, "Please step aside, I'm going to help you." I then saw Wanda connecting all the wires as if she were the technician, and within 10 minutes, voila, she had surround sound. The man was astonished, as was I. Wanda was a gambler, not that it was an addiction. It came from knowing she would win. It was rare if Wanda lost in Vegas or anywhere for that matter. Jupiter, the planet of prosperity, was on her side. Perhaps that's what made Wanda generous to a fault. She always knew that the beloved provided, and truly believed the more you give, the more you receive. My idea of enlightenment is how selfless one is. My sister Wanda was selfless in everything she did. Her home became known as the Rhoades Hotel. She would take in anyone having a hard time. Wanda loved people. I'd like to mention Wanda's psychic abilities. The word psychic, by the way, comes from the Greek word psyche, meaning soul. Wanda trusted the natural intelligence of her inner compass. One morning, while having breakfast, Wanda casually said to me, "Pack your bags, you're going to Chicago." I ignored her prediction, but not even 3 days later, I was on a plane to Chicago. Once we took a class on developing our intuition, and the teacher passed around a woman's watch. Most students received general information, which was mostly wrong, but when it was Wanda's turn, she said without hesitation, "This woman has stomach cancer." The teacher responded, "You're right, she's in the hospital now." I believe because of Wanda's so-called psychic or soul awareness, she was in touch with dimensions most of us ignore. Wanda loved nature, especially the nature beings of the fairy kingdom. She collected fairies in all shapes and sizes. Many, who knew her well, said Wanda reminded them of Tinkerbell. She certainly was the size of Tinkerbell, small but mighty. There was something magically enchanting about Wanda that you could not help but notice. I believe many of us have felt this way with Wanda's fairy dust. God forbid if you ever put a nickel into Wanda. She was notorious for telling stories, starting in the middle, working towards the ending, and finishing at the beginning. You hung in there hoping it would make sense as she moved along. But once Wanda realized she had lost her audience, she would laugh at herself. I've always felt laughing at yourself was a good sign of wisdom, and Wanda laughed at herself often. Her stories were one thing, but her aphorisms made you want to think twice because she said them with such conviction. Allow me to give you a few examples. He who hesitates is lost. Wanda's version. He who hesitates is slow. If you want a thing done well, do it yourself. Wanda's version. If you want a thing done well, pay somebody. 6 of one and half of a dozen of the other. Wanda's version. 6 of 3 is better than a dozen of nothing. And my favorite, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Wanda's version. To err is human, to forgive, it must have been your fault. Wanda believed in the oneness of all life, and she didn't take to any one religion or even beliefs. She was spiritual in her natural knowing of what is so. She knew love is always the answer and unity the true path. Wanda was open-minded in the best of ways. I believe Wanda was a warrior of higher truth. Her favorite movie was The Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis because it was about courage, spirit, and heart. Wanda owned such attributes, and at times much to her own detriment. Wanda was no doubt the best sister ever. She was my big, little soul sister, my rock, my hero, my light. We were only 13 months apart, which might explain our strong soul connection. We could easily read each other's thoughts. I can't recall laughing out loud with anyone more than my sister Wanda. My band, Duncan, once said, "I wish Wanda could have a second chance." I believe he meant a second chance to know how incredibly beautiful she truly was inside and out. I now envision Wanda living joyfully behind the veil, experiencing her second chance, because now she sees the awesome truth of who she is. I know Wanda is with us today in spirit, listening to our every word and her unwavering love for us all. I see her striking a pose with her usual humble demeanor and stating with a grin, "Whatever floats your toes." Bravo, Wanda, for a life well done. Thank you.
So the next one would be written by Vanessa. It is Cameron Kainer-Stauffer, read by Vanessa Espinoza.
I'd like to echo thank you everybody for being here today. My name is Vanessa and Wanda is my Lala. I am Cindy Auger's daughter, and I am reading this on behalf of Cameron Kainer-Stauffer, who could not join us today in person. First off, I'd like to thank Wanda for one of the greatest gifts possible, and that is the art of cooking. This gift began in a surprising way. When I turned 16, I decided to become vegetarian. Like many teens before and after me, this was announced loudly one night at the dinner table without any other plan. Wanda cocked her head, narrowed one eye, and calmly said, "Fine, I'm not cooking anything different for you. There's rice and cucumber salad. CJ." Those, you see, were staples at almost every dinner, and that is exactly what I ate every night for dinner for 6 days. On the 7th day, they say that God rested, satisfied with creation. On my 7th day, I was miserable, and it was clear that I was going to have to learn how to cook. The rules were clear. As long as I didn't get in the way of the main dinner preparation and cleaned up what I used for our family, was pretty large at that time, I could do what I wanted. My initial attempts were quietly disastrous, so my next step was to study the expert. I shyly began to watch how exactly Wanda pulled off her evening miracles of dinner for 8 or 18, for there were often friends or strangers stopping by with little or no notice. She did this with the calm of a Zen master. How did I not notice this before? She may have even cooked meat in her meals, but the principles of cooking were the same: measuring, slicing, chopping, boiling, baking, and all the rest of it. As I got more comfortable in the kitchen, I also asked more questions. How did she learn all of these recipes? Which vinegar was best with the salad? And what was the secret to cooking rice? She shared what she knew, often through a quick demo with a story along the way. Before I moved out of the house, she bought me a small rice cooker and also taught me the top secret finger measurement. I know that one. To know how much water to add in case I had to make rice in a regular pot. I moved often, and that rice cooker didn't last past the 3rd move, but the finger measurement trick turned out to be one of the most valuable culinary lessons ever. When I moved overseas and wanted to impress my new in-laws, I decided to learn how to make pie and cheesecake. Austrians are known for their desserts, but not pie and cheesecake. Wanda shared recipe tips and recommendations over telephone and 10 time zones. When I flew back to California for a summer visit, Wanda taught me how to make a proper lattice top pie crust. It was also that summer that I realized, although she had multiple cookbooks and cooking magazines, she rarely cooked from them. They merely served as inspiration points. She could reverse engineer almost any recipe and substitute or change steps or ingredients on the fly. This skill was also invaluable when I returned to Austria, where ingredients could differ wildly. Wanda was also a St. Francis in the kitchen, slipping bits of food on the sly to any house pet that happened to cross her path while cooking. Cats would do their best to charm her, dancing and purring figure eights around her legs while she cooked. Dogs managed to yip, tail wag, smile, and give their best impression that they were starving, in hopes that a morsel of meat would land accidentally on the floor. She managed to sidestep the animals getting in her way, slip some food to them, and keep on cooking in a blurring ninja motion between refrigerator, stovetop, oven, and kitchen table. At some point, Wanda and I developed a taste for Indian food. She was also a famous nibbler, rarely eating everything on her plate. When I visited, we would sometimes go out to Indian buffet for lunch. I would find the places that had the most dishes with the hopes that she would nibble enough from each to approximate a regular meal. The ability to see each dish and try a little worked like magic. She would have seconds and sometimes thirds for the things she liked. We had a lot of fun figuring out the best places to try. During the height of this period, I told her that I would make Indian food for dinner on Mother's Day. Indian food is known for having many dishes at one meal. I got in way over my head and ended up spending the entire day in the kitchen. At one point, I started a small fire in the oven, trying to broil the naan bread properly, and ran out of pots and pans. In Wanda's kitchen, running out of dishes was a dubious achievement. The kitchen looked as though a curry-laced bomb had exploded everywhere. I set Wanda down at the table that evening, put out the food, and reassured her that I would indeed clean up everything, including the oven. She relaxed a little and enjoyed the meal. We chatted about some of the recipes and how they compared to what we had in the restaurants. My cleanup went past midnight, but it was so worth it. On one of my last trips to Fremont, Wanda preferred to stay upstairs and no longer spent time in the kitchen cooking. We still talked about food, however. I asked her about cooking bitter melon, ginseng, apalaya, and to my surprise, she got very excited. I'll show you. Now, here's what you have to get at the store. I got very precise instructions about which stores to visit and how to pick a good bitter melon, too. When I got back, she was waiting downstairs. We made 2 versions, one with meat and one with eggplant. And just like in the earlier days, she shared stories while she was cooking, and it was clear that this recipe was very dear to her. She talked about her Lala and watched her cooking in the kitchen. Some dread the taste of bitter melon, and she admitted that for this reason, she had not cooked it often, but she really liked it over time. She enjoyed a large helping, which made it even more special. Some cooks guard their best recipes and keep them secret, like a dragon hoards gold, but not Wanda. There is a saying, if you give a person a fish, you feed that person for a day. If you teach that person to fish, you feed that person for a lifetime. The same applies to the art of cooking. Thank you, Wanda, for sharing your knowledge and love of cooking so generously with me. You are at my side often in my memory, while I'm measuring the water for rice, thinking about what to swap out in a recipe, planning the next pie for a summer picnic, remembering family tales exchanged while cooking, and more. I'm only now realizing what a treasure you gave to me over the years following along in your kitchen. I may not want to catch or eat a fish, but at least I know how to cook one. The real treasure is that you are in my heart in my own kitchen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beautiful words. Now we'll have sharing and thoughts from for the family members.
Okay. Give me a second. For those of you, I'm Corey. This is gonna be hard, but I'm gonna get through this. I was up till midnight working on this. I remember Mom, the heartbeat of the Rhoades family. This is not going to be easy for me to read, and I'll probably cry. But these are some things I wanted to share about Mom. Hold on a second. I was first introduced to Mom when I was in the 6th grade. I was only 12 years old. I had a difficult time with my father's 3rd wife, so I was cautious at first. But seeing how much she really cared about me and my sister Cameron really mattered. I remember my mom, Linda, really liked her. She would tell Cameron and I that we could really trust her. If you knew the story of my early years, you will understand that part. I have so many memories growing up with Mom that it was hard to choose just one, so I may ramble, but these are the moments that define Mom to me. There were so many places and trips we went on in the RV, but I always remember how Mom was a much better driver than my dad. I remember the trip to Palm Springs and how hot it was, that Mom saved the trip by telling us to hop in the pool. For those of us on that trip, we will never forget the monarch butterflies and the wind trying to blow us away. But Mom was driving, so I knew we were okay. I remember how she always cooked artichokes for me on my birthday. She knew how much I loved them. We had the best family get-togethers, good food with good people, always made the best memories. Mom was someone who always made sure you felt at home. Mom was a very stern person growing up. She had a house full of girls to raise. Not an easy job for her to do, and my dad was definitely not easy to deal with either. He would require her for everything. I can still hear him saying, "Wanda, Wanda, Wanda." I will never forget when my dad got his first cell phone. He was calling every few minutes, asking where's Mom. We used to answer the house phone saying, "Hello, Grand Central Station, Rhoades house." My dad couldn't do anything without Mom, and I mean anything. They were glued together like 2 peas in a pod. I have so many memories of the years with both of them. When my mom passed away when I was 14 years old, I remember coming home after my dad told me and sitting in the happy room, family room, thinking about my whole life ahead of me and not visually seeing a mom in it. I said, who's going to be there when I get married or when I have kids? I saw my life without a mom at that time because I was grieving. But let me tell you that Mom was everything to me. She taught me how to cook, drive, be a better person to myself, and how when things got hard for me, she always knew what to say to me to help me understand. I made a lot of choices in life that were not always the best, but Mom knew how to guide me and get me back on the right path. She always told me to stand in my truth and it will set you free. She was the only constant thing in my life. In my first marriage, I eloped, and when she found out, she still threw me a huge party to celebrate the occasion. She had her doubts about the relationship, but knew I was very determined and wouldn't listen to advice at that time in my life. She still embraced it, knowing how she felt. When I came pregnant with my firstborn, she was my Lamaze coach and would drive to Sacramento 2 times a week to be there for me. When I went into labor in the middle of the night, she called my sister Shereen and said, "Come on, we gotta go. Corey needs us." She was so loving to me because I was not doing well with the contractions. I was having triple contractions and my unborn child was going into stress and I had to labor on my side because his heart almost stopped. All I remember is her love for me, and I do not know how I would have done it without her. When my marriage turned bad, I remember how I was so scared to call Mom and Dad and tell them I needed help. Dad put Mom on the phone, and she was there for me through everything. I was literally a wreck, and Mom took charge, and I knew that I was in good hands. She was my savior in so many ways. I was at my lowest of lows, and I leaned on her so much because I was so scared. Mom had a strength like no other. She knew to never cross her. She would never forget anything. Seriously. You didn't cross her. When I met my current husband, Bill, she warned me that I was going too fast, but I knew something was different this time around. I told her how much she cared for my son, and I could see that she trusted that. This time around, I did the time, and 2.5 years later, got married. Mom planned the whole wedding. She was amazing. I knew she had a love for gambling at the casinos and was a really good winner, too. That's why we got married at Caesars in Tahoe. Again, when I got pregnant with my second child, Mom was there for me through everything. She really loved being a grandma. I feel it was her second calling. She really loved all children. She would change her voice to sound like Donald Duck and talk to the children, and they would giggle and laugh. She came alive each time they were around her. As the years went on, Mom and I grew closer and closer. When I would come to the Fremont house to visit, I would be there for hours with her talking about everything. Time would always fly by, and I'd always be so sad to leave, but knew that we had the best conversations together. Reflecting on how I was a challenge to her when I was younger, but how much I changed over the years, and would tell her it was all her guidance she gave me. The holidays were her thing. Thanksgiving was always my dad's birthday time, and she made sure it was a feast from start to finish. She was in the kitchen all day long. Christmas time was where she shined in her decorations and presents around the Christmas tree for all the family and grandchildren and everyone who attended. She always made sure to give us a 1-pound box of See's chocolate, nuts and shoes. Gift cards to the movies, too. Boy, did they love going to the movies. When my dad's life was starting to change, Mom called and informed us, and I remember her telling us that they were going to do whatever to help him. I told her, let me know what I can do. I knew this time was very hard on Mom because she didn't like seeing Dad like this. As a family, we all came together to help her out with his final care. I know when Dad passed away, a huge part of Mom was gone too. I would come over to visit her, and she wouldn't leave the bedroom. I know why she stayed. I understood her love. When Mom moved into Shireen's house, she was doing so much better. Quit smoking, gave up soda, and was gaining weight. I really felt Mom was going to start her new chapter in life. One of the last things I asked Mom was, Mom, if you could be reincarnated, would you come back as? She told me with a smile on her face, a fairy. I asked her, what kind of fairy would you want to be? She said, like me. Just like that. This was when I knew Mom was exactly who she wanted to be. Mom was as much my mom as she was my sister's. I told her every day how much I loved her. I tried to take care of her as she had taken care of me. I wanted to spoil her like she spoiled all of us. She was the most important person in our family, and a huge part is missing. But I know she is at peace now and isn't suffering anymore. We have another angel watching over us, and most importantly, she was with my dad again. I will always have my memories of Mom, and I would not be the woman I am today without her influences and guidance. I love you, Mom. I hope to make you proud every day I'm alive. I miss you, Mom. Thank you for loving me so much. Your daughter, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Now we have the sharing the thoughts of memories from friends. Is there anybody? We're passing the mic around, so if there's any sharing thoughts of memories of Miss Wanda. We have Matthew here.
I'm back. So we've been spending some, the last few days, last several weeks, kind of reminiscing, talking about my Auntie Wanda. And, there's so many great stories, and she's lived such a full life. It's hard to actually, pick a single story that truly represents her in her entirety. So I've been thinking about just kind of my first engagements and just growing up with Auntie Wanda, there for me. I remember, I think I was 3 or 4 years old, and it was for Christmas time, and at that time, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were huge, and she got me the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles VHS movie, and I knew I seen her before. I didn't know exactly who it was, being 3 or 4 years old, but I'm like, she's special, and that was Auntie Wanda. She always made sure that everyone had what they wanted or needed. Regardless if it was right or not. For my cousin Sherry, she went to school in San Jose, so she didn't go to school in Fremont, and so we had to, with my aunt watching us, sometimes we'd have to go with her to pick up my cousin, and we'd piss, we'd fuss, so far away, it's like 2 hours, and it's like 20 minutes if you're actually down. And, but she's like, do you want to go to AM/PM and get some candy? And I was like, okay, you have my attention. But then, beyond her laughs and smiles, as people have attested to, she also had, the spicy side. And for me, I actually found it funny. I've never laughed in her face about it. Like, that's just something you wouldn't do. And hate to put my cousin Morgan as an example, but usually it was spicy towards him, and usually I'd sit there like, ooh, what's happening? But she had her ways about her, making sure that we learned life's lessons in her own way. She taught us this. She always had sayings, and I think about several of them that, some are cliche, but some are, like some of my favorite ones were like, look with your eyes, not your mouth. So, yeah, what does that have to do with tea in China? And my favorite one, though it wasn't my favorite whenever she said it to me, is, what I Wanda got? I Wanda got its neck broke. So yeah, when kids were she made sure to put us in order. But truthfully, I had a lot of resentment towards her these last several years, and I never knew why. I felt that she gave up, but then I kind of reflected on it all, and I think it was more, she had always been a fighter. And I realized that people deal with pain in their own way. And it's not our right to judge them for how they deal with their pain. I knew that she didn't stop loving us. I know that she wanted us and wants us to be happy. And more importantly, to enjoy and love life. That's really what she wants. And if I could ask all of you to leave today and make sure you do something that you enjoy and that you love, she'll be up there smiling and doing the same thing with you. So, here's to you, Auntie Wanda. I hope you and Uncle Dan are pouring them strong and long. Take care. Love you.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I'd sat down several times over these past few weeks trying to think of something to write. And every time I did, I couldn't. So I'm just going to try and bear through it and, just share some of my favorite memories of my grandma. The first memory that I have is she came to Arizona to pick me up. She picked me up. She's like, I'm taking you home with me. And then she brought me back to the Fremont house, and she brought out all these food for me, and I was very meticulous as a child. I'd always set up all of my toys along the edge of the table, and she'd sit there, and oddly enough, she was really one of very few people that I was totally okay with helping me line up my toys. If anybody else did it, I was very upset about it. There's been a lot of memories shared of her today about how she used to be very fierce, and you don't cross her. And I feel like when I came around as her grandson, I didn't get a lot of that. I heard all of the stories for sure. One that always sticks clearly in my head is Morgan refusing to take the trash out, and her taking a garbage bag and wrapping it around his head, saying, "You're taking this trash out." Yeah, I didn't get anything like that. What I got was the bubbly, foamy part of the soda right after she poured it, or the cool side of the pillow after a bath, my ears cleaned. So I definitely was spoiled by her as being her grandson. She's taken me on many adventures and has shown me a great love of travel. She took me and several of my cousins, my aunts and uncles, across to Nebraska, where I saw one of the most beautiful 4th of July experiences I've ever had. There's also the countless trips to Disneyland, one of which was really bad, but and that's mainly my own fault because I got stuck, and you know what? We don't need to get into that, but she was right there after to get me new clothes and some ice cream to make the happiest place on earth that much happier. Yeah, it's not a thing that I don't love about my grandmother. She taught me a lot, and something that she'd always say in really hard times like this is, "This too shall pass," and we're all in this together. So I just want to say that. Thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you, everybody. Wow, look at y'all. Celebration of life for Wanda. Yay. Well, I'm Dan Rhoades' oldest daughter, Cindy, and she was never my mom. She was a friend because I was grown and moved out of the house when I met her. So I got to see a side of Wanda that my younger siblings didn't get to see. I got to see the fun side, the sassy side, the side they weren't supposed to see. So I'm going to take you guys on a journey today. We're going to have some fun, aren't we, Shireen? And we're going to talk about the fun side of Wanda. Some of my best memories with Juan, and that's how I knew her, was Juan, not Wanda, was when we took a cross-country trip with her and Shireen. And we went to Omaha, Nebraska in the wintertime. There wasn't a day on that trip that wasn't adventurous, humorous, never a dull moment, and a total great experience. I still to this day think of that trip and laugh to myself that we did it and had a great time. And we heard a lot today about how she was sassy, she was spicy, she was fierce. Oh, I could tell you firsthand. So, yeah, don't let the littleness, the looks fool you. And Shireen being the beautiful blonde, blue-eyed little girl, and Wanda being Filipino, people look at her and say, it's in her mom, that ain't her mom. Anyway, yeah. We were in New Orleans, and we were at a truck stop getting gas and snacks, and we were walking up, getting in line, and, you know, there was this big trucker, and he laid eyes on Shireen, and that was it. And he thought, Shireen's woman, she's not 14. And so when Juan told him to leave her daughter alone, he looked at her like, yeah, right. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to get really interesting fast. Like, I don't know Wanda that well, but I know she's got it in her. So finally, she'd had enough of this man, and she said she used her primal voice. And the guy realized, oh, she wasn't joking. And I thought, oh, this is so funny, how little one could run off this big trucker with her attitude. And she did. The guy just said, okay, I don't want part of this. Then we were at this hotel in Nebraska, sleeping peacefully. And I think this was one of my most favorite times. Juan and Shireen were in one bed, and I was in another bed, and it was about 1 a.m., and I woke up to Juan saying, why are they vacuuming at this time in the morning? Then she called the front desk, and the clerk told Juan that it was a fire and to get out of the building, and Juan yelled, fire, which woke up Shireen. Shireen went into a panic, ran to the door. After a minute, figured out how to unlock the door. Shireen ran out in her underwear. And I totally was awake at this point. Me and Juan got Shireen back in the room, thank God. And we got our robes on, our shoes on. We went downstairs, and we were standing outside in the snow with hundreds of other people, and it seemed like watching the firemen doing their job. Wanda looked at us and burst out laughing, and we were looking so disgusting and just staring at these firemen. We were so gorgeous, and we were just terrible looking. And she told us how we looked. We immediately stopped staring. That was one of many fun times on that trip. And like you all have said today, she was had a very magical side to her. I remember one of the fondest memories also is she got all of us girls together, and we were jazz dancing. And that was so much fun. It seemed like there wasn't anything we couldn't do with her as long as she was there leading us. And that was a very fun time that we shared with all the men in our lives on Father's Day. I feel so blessed to have spent time with her in the kitchen, where she taught me several great recipes. Man, that woman could cook. I especially remember Juan for her beautiful smile, especially when she would be cooking, and she would put on this holiday feast, and she would look her best at the same time. She was truly, truly magnificent and had so much class to her. Even though we knew this time would come, there's no way to prepare your heart. I love you, Juan. I miss you every day. May you rest in peace, beautiful lady.
Now we'll continue to have a memorial video produced by Morgan Van Lint.
to let me shine. That's your way. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. My wings, you are the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly away. You let me fly so high. You, the wind beneath my wings. Oh, the wind beneath my wings. Fly, fly so high against the sky, so high I almost touch the sky. Thank you, thank God for you, the wind beneath my wings.
And with that, in closing prayer, I pray that everybody bow their heads and pray with me in your own special way. We want to thank you for the sharing and appreciation of the greatness of Miss Wanda Schermerhorn-Rhoades. We say to you, well done. Your contribution has exceeded the expectations. The love you have given this world has far outweighed what is given to you. To our family, I promise you, she will make the same decisions over again. Because love is a daily and continuous decision, and she loved you all so much, and I guarantee you that she had every intent to making sure that you loved her back. But you all find love and peace and comfort in this time of pain, and may her memory give you peace that surpasses it all. Amen.
Just wanted to thank all of you for coming and celebrating my mom's beautiful life. As you know, she had the biggest heart, and she'll always be with us. And just a little backstory. The second day after she passed away, I was asleep. My girlfriend was laying next to me, and I started to whimper in my sleep, and Amy reached over and grabbed me on the shoulder to wake me up, and I was kicking my feet because somebody was pulling them. And I first of all, she told me she was always going to haunt me. So, and secondly, the old Filipino wives' tale is, growing up, and I didn't remember this, is that they always used to say, I'm going to pull your feet when I die. And it happened. So she was there, and I hope she doesn't do it anymore because I was scared. But it was so real. And so I think that was just her way of saying goodbye. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you.
We'd like to invite everybody out for refreshments in the back. And this concludes our celebration of Miss Wanda Rhoades. Thank you very much.
Party for Aunt Wanda.
Time to party, huh?
Okay.